We've got a major winter storm developing as we head into the weekend, and I've got the details on it right here. And let's start with that alerts map. As you can see, we've got all those alert colors on your screen. Starting off with winter weather from parts of Kansas and Nebraska all the way on up through parts of Michigan, as well as the upper peninsula of Michigan itself. And we've got winter weather alerts, those pinks indicating winter storm warnings, and we even have a blizzard warning, including parts of southern Minnesota, most of Iowa, and then a sliver of western Illinois. Those tannish brown colors moving along the southern corridor, those are wind advisories. By the way, if you enjoyed this video, please hit subscribe. Now let's get into the rest of the details, starting with severe. About midway through the video, we'll get into snowfall, so if you want to skip to that point, you can do so as well. But here we go, severe weather outlook for our Thursday, January 11th. This is as I'm filming this tonight. Severe weather enhanced risk, level 3 out of 5, and the Arctic text. This does include the chance for some tornadoes to get spun up there as we head into the overnight hours, especially around midnight and onward. Tonight, going into our early Friday morning, this includes Little Rock on down to Shreveport and the Texarkana region. Let's get into that future radar high resolution here from the HRRR model. As you can see here, some of these showers and storms developing along the kind of the warmer boundary of the system could produce some hail initially as we go into the 10-11 o'clock central time frame this evening over parts of central and northern Arkansas, as well as southeastern Missouri. Those will begin to lift northward. Wouldn't be shocked if we saw some stronger winds there near Springfield, Missouri, as a little band of storms develops there as well. Very heavy rain as well in this corridor. But our main attention is going to be on the southern end of this line through southeast Oklahoma, all the way on down to Dallas and Tyler, Texas, as well as some of those discrete supercell storms that could develop out ahead of it. And you can see some of those forming 1-2 a.m. tonight into parts of western Arkansas. Now, as I adjust this slider further, you'll continue to notice these storms making their way on off towards the east, and they're going to do so quite quickly. These storms are going to be moving at pretty quick rates as the system is doing so as well. Southerly flow out ahead of that linear segment of storms. I honestly think a lot of the focus is going to be on that line of storms as it pushes through places like Little Rock all the way on down to far northern Louisiana, 3, 4, 5, 6 a.m. tonight. I think it's going to be around 5, 6 a.m. Central Time when Little Rock really begins to see those impacts. But again, we're still watching those cells out ahead of this line. Some of these could move through parts of Memphis as well. And you'll notice these stretch all the way on down the Mississippi River Valley there. Some supercells could be lined on up. There's not going to be a lot of energy in place, but as you can see, it's those little cells out ahead of the line that I really have my attention on. I don't think the tornado threat's going to be extremely high. I honestly think some of the southern parts of this risk zone may miss out. That's why we've got the question mark down there into central Louisiana and southern Mississippi. But nonetheless, we'll watch these cells. I think it's going to be in northern Mississippi tomorrow morning when we've got a line of some damaging winds as well as maybe some tornado potential. That's why tomorrow's risk has actually been downgraded a bit over other parts of the southeast, but we still hold under that enhanced risk over northern Mississippi and northwestern Alabama. Still slight risk over Alabama, Georgia, Panhandle of Florida on up through the Carolinas, especially the eastern Carolinas. And this does include a broad tornado outlook of that 5 to 9% within 25 miles of a point. I don't think tomorrow is going to be a tornado outbreak like initially we were looking at here. And this is because there's temperatures that are just not going to be favorable for this at the surface. And I'll show you that instability here in just a minute. But getting back into that future radar, again, in the morning hours tomorrow, I think we're going to be watching far eastern Arkansas, western Tennessee, as well as northern Mississippi, say, as we go 8 and 9 in the morning. Now, as we play this out, continuing at this point, you really notice that we've got kind of just a big mess here. You can't really pick out an individual line or some segments of storms that really look concerning. Sure, there's a lot of reds in here showing heavy rain and some lightning, but at this point, it just looks like kind of a big mess towards midday, pushing through parts of Tennessee, northern Alabama, still maybe parts of northeastern Mississippi as well. We'll start to watch in North Georgia at this point as well. And then this event is going to continue to kind of shift eastward. Now, closer to the Gulf Coast, we could see some discrete cells on the southern end of this line, or even out ahead of that boundary of the cold front. You can clearly see that cold front pushing through parts of central Alabama at this point. Maybe some feistier winds from Birmingham up to Huntsville into the early afternoon of tomorrow. But notice here, you don't see really any distinct features even as we head towards 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon here over parts of Georgia, South Carolina. We'll be watching those cells in southwestern Georgia for maybe some rotation. But again, as the day goes on, looks like a lot of rain up there into parts of the western Carolinas. That could probably, prohibit severe weather from developing there with a colder air mass in place. And then maybe close to the South Carolina, North Carolina shores As the day goes on here into our Friday evening, we could see some tornado threats arise. But at this point, I don't see an outbreak occurring. I'll let you know if that changes tomorrow, of course. But notice some of those cells later in the day look a little bit more promising for some severe weather there along that North Carolina shore. Now, let me show you exactly why severe weather is not quite as high in the risk department as initially expected. Again, here we go tonight. Some modest instability into parts of the Arclitex. The key is at the top of your screen. You can see it goes green, yellow, orange, red, pinks, and all the way to whites on this map. The best you see in storm energy tomorrow, and I mean, this is a good thing if you don't want severe weather, right? This is only bad if you're a storm chaser. Pretty much confined to the Gulf Coast. These are green colors continuing, and most of this pretty much sub 500 joules per kilogram of CAPE in some parts of the northern part of this risk zone, which is pretty much very limited storm energy. So we're not really looking at a huge event as of now, but again, I'll let you know if that changes. But with your winter storm severity index, here's your potential winter storm impacts on the northern end of the storm. Major impacts, considerable disruptions to daily life. Travel is going to be highly interrupted here over parts of Iowa, on into southern Wisconsin, northern Illinois, northern Indiana, as well as on into Michigan. Really, if you're in any color on this map, you need to be prepared, but especially in those oranges and reds that stretch from Nebraska all the way on over to Michigan. That's where we're really looking at the worst winter storm impacts. Tonight, here we go. Snow picking on up, some of this with some gusty winds as well, in parts of Nebraska, northern Missouri, as well as southern Iowa. This snow, quite heavy at times through Des Moines into the evening hours and into the overnight as well. So here as we go Thursday night into our Friday. Look at how this starts off as a pretty hefty snow event to places like Chicago, Milwaukee. This band of snow is really going to be quite heavy, especially closer to where that heavier rain is down there into southern Missouri and southern Illinois. Bloomington, Illinois, man, it's going to be a close call for you, but it's going to turn over from snow to maybe a little sleet ice mix to rain pretty quickly here. Joliet as well, just southwest of Chicago there, looking to turn over to some ice as this event goes forward. But this could be a pretty quick and heavy snow to start this event off into places like Chicago, southeast Wisconsin. Also notice a little bit of wintry weather wrapping back around through parts of southern Kansas as well as Oklahoma on into Arkansas there. And then here we go. As the day goes on here on your Friday, we'll monitor this. It looks like the HRRR model showing a little bit more in the way of colder air at the surface here over parts of Chicago, southern Michigan, southern Wisconsin, and that could keep some of that ice away. I do think we'll turn over to at least sleet in Chicago a couple times here. But overall, it is looking like this will stay a mostly snow event, especially if you're in Wisconsin, north of that border into Milwaukee, all the way on up to Green Bay, through parts of Saginaw, Michigan, northward. It's going to be a very heavy snow event here. Those gray colors on your screen really indicating that heavier snow moving on through. Detroit, yes, you will wrap around with some rain as the day goes on here on your Friday, but then it turns back over to snow at the tail end of this event. So a mostly snow event from Chicago northward here, especially on into parts of Wisconsin, Michigan, as well as the upper peninsula of Michigan, and that is why the snow totals are going to be the heaviest there. Here you go, here are those totals. Again, Chicago itself right now with a model blend showing maybe 3 to 6 inches of snow. I think that could get elevated just with 25 miles of a southward shift in this track. I do not think Chicago is going to get more than a foot of snow, though, even with if a track shift occurs. But notice that swath of 6+ inches of snow that starts in northeastern Nebraska, Iowa getting 6 to 10 inches of snow, but remember some blizzard conditions wrapping back around. Heaviest snow will be 12 to 18 inches there in eastern Wisconsin, the UP of Michigan, northern Michigan as well. Pretty lackluster totals here in the northeast unless you're coming off the lakes, Lake Erie, Lake Ontario, and then on over there into parts of Maine. I'm pretty much seeing the snowfall side of this system, and that is about it. Now, your wind gust forecast with the HRRR model, this is what's going to make for that blizzard. Overnight tonight going into our Friday morning, wind's not quite strong enough to make this a blizzard over parts of the Midwest, but we will have some strong southerlies down here closer to the Gulf Coast, along with some of those showers and storms, the convection down there, 40, 50, maybe 60 mile per hour gusts at times, especially through parts of Tennessee. But as the day rolls on, kind of as this event begins to wrap on up into Iowa, that's when we'll see some blowing snow. You might not even necessarily be getting a blizzard when snow is falling. You could have this with blowing snow that has already been on the ground, kind of floating around, going over roadways, decreasing that visibility. Pretty much if you're in the Midwest tomorrow, try to avoid travel. So as you make your way through your Friday, just try to avoid that travel over the Midwest. And then into the Northeast, we will also see some gusts along the shores there. But notice prolonged periods of some wraparound 40, 50, 60 mile per hour gusts, indicated by those red and even yellow colors there. These will also impact northern Ohio. Akron getting in on some of that. And then notice the eastern coast of the U.S. right along southern New England shores getting in on some stronger winds as well. Now your rainfall through Saturday mid-afternoon here using the HRRR model, it's heaviest into parts of northeast Arkansas, southern Missouri on over into the southwest Ohio Valley. Where you get rain and it's not snow in Illinois and Indiana, it will be quite heavy as well, 1 to 3 inches there. Most spots along the eastern seaboard under an inch or two, but since we had that latest and recent big event of rainfall that caused major flooding up the east coast, wouldn't be shocked if we saw some more concerns develop there. All right, there you go. Here's that snowfall graphic from the National Weather Service on the top right side of that graphic on your screen right now. But key words here: major Midwest snowstorm likely, blizzard conditions likely with strong winds, winds increasing Friday night, drastically reduced visibility will make travel dangerous to impossible there over parts of the Midwest. The lake effect snowfall chances will persist this weekend. Of course, we're watching the southern end of this winter storm for the severe weather and flooding in the southeast, but we've also got our eyes on a big Arctic outbreak coming up as we head towards next week. It's going to be kind of started off with a winter storm that could bring moderate winter storm impacts. The chances for that increasing over Oklahoma and Arkansas there as we head towards Sunday to Monday, and maybe even a nor'easter as we head towards next week. Details definitely very uncertain with that at this point, but you can definitely see on that bottom graphic showing the potential for a winter storm to head up the east coast. But the bitter cold is going to be what's really important here for you to know about, because this is going to be extremely dangerous over the north central U.S. primarily. At the peak of the Arctic outbreak early next week, minimum wind chills should fall below zero into Texas and the interior southeast. Wind chills this weekend across the northern plains and northern Rockies will be below negative 40 degrees. Okay, so this is dangerous cold. Of course, frostbite, hypothermia concerns in a very quick period of time if you're outside, especially without layers. So definitely, if you have to go outside, wear those layers, but try to limit your outdoor exposure or just keep it from happening at all. And then as we go into that last thing I want to show you, this is your 6 to 10 day temperature probability outlook. Well below normal over parts of the Midwest and the Southeast by this point. This is during the heart of that Arctic blast as we head towards the middle to back half of next week. Only spots warmer than average along the West Coast. But that's it for this update. I'll have more on that coming up in future updates. But for now, just hit that subscribe button and hit the like button. And that's it for this video. Leave comments below.